Welcome to the Women at the Top podcast interview series. My name is Regina Barr, and I'm the founder of the Women at the Top network. I'll be your host today. Women at the Top is a community of like-minded women who share the Watt vision and mission. And our goal, simply put, is to empower aspiring women to lead. And we do that in a couple of ways, by providing information, training, and connections. Joining me today is Beth Gibson Lilja, professional organizer and owner of BGL Associates. And before we get started, let me tell you just a little bit about Beth. Beth has specialized in professional organizing and training for over 20 years. Through her company, BGL Associates, professional organizers, Beth brings order and peace of mind to people and groups with her leadership and organizational skills. Beth organizes home offices, photographs, and events. Her success has expanded to organizing home offices to save clients time and to simplify personal and professional lives. Her help makes your days run more smoothly. She's a Golden Circle member of the National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals, also known as NAPO. Beth has served as president of Minnesota Business Women and in positions at local, state, and national levels. She also serves on the board of directors for NAPO Minnesota and is the organization's treasurer. She's a graduate of St. Cloud State University and lives in Golden Valley, Minnesota, with her husband, Patrick, and their dog, Caribbean, also known as Carrie. On that note, welcome, Beth. Let's go ahead and get started. I always like to start with hearing the backstory, Beth, and I'd love to know a little bit about what your professional journey was that led you to becoming a professional organizer. So tell us a little bit about that.
I would love that opportunity to share that with you. And again, thank you so much for this opportunity to be with you and with everyone listening live or on the recording. Kind of a little bit of a backroads story. So my story actually begins when I was young, and I was a young girl, and I was in 4-H and had to do a lot of projects related to that, a lot of organization. Believe it or not, I was president of my 4-H club. But during that time frame, I organized the group. I organized my closet. I colorized. I did everything as a young girl. And then that moved on to me in my college world, and then also into the professional world as well, where I worked for a large bank, and I was in their training and compliance department. And so with that, trying to help new employees as they were coming on board and helping and teaching people how to read trust documents, estate documents, that type of thing. And while I was doing that, I was introduced to a woman who was helping people with their photos and with their scrapbooks. And I actually had created my very first scrapbook as a young woman or a young girl in 4-H. And I was introduced and I was like, oh, wow, this is a whole new world. I love photography. I love preserving my photos. And I started doing it on the side. So I was helping my clients, working on their photos, organizing, and then I was helping them organize their craft room and their offices. And so in the daytime, I was helping people read trust documents. And then I was going home and helping people organize their photos, and then loved that opportunity. When my position was eliminated, corporate, trying to figure out, I loved my job. I loved the training. I loved the coaching. And my husband said, you have this other business. Why don't you pursue that? And so then I took it a little bit further and then started my own professional organizing business, specializing now in home office organization as well as photo management.
Wow. I mean, what a blessing in disguise, right? Because sometimes when one door closes, we don't always look at it that way. And I also want to congratulate you on 20 years. I was just talking with my virtual assistant and realized that I'll be celebrating 20 years myself full time as Red Ladder. I believe it's April 1. So congratulations. It's and as someone who you've been an entrepreneur for a long time, myself included, that's not insignificant for either one of us, because many small businesses don't even make it through the first 5 years. And in fact, many of them don't even make it through the first or second year. So yay us, right?
Yes, that's correct. Absolutely.
So we are well into the month of February. And as you probably know, Beth, a lot of us set goals in January and may or may not have already abandoned them. I hope many of us have not, but the reality is many people abandon them. So tell us a little bit about the process that you use to set your personal and professional goals for the year.
Absolutely. As we all know, goal setting is important, but I actually start before January. I always take a look at like the last quarter of the previous year to get myself ready for the next year. And some things that I take a look at is I look at what is called reflections. I take a look back for the year and see kind of what worked, what didn't work, and what can I make some changes for the next year. So that's one thing, is kind of doing a reflections. And then I do a vision board. And I know, Regina, you have talked about those as well. I think it's very critical to have, for me anyway, and maybe many of your audience as well, is a vision. I need to have a board that gives me some feel of what it's going to be like for the year, or what are the things that I want to do, whether they are pie in the sky or very easily done goals. And then with that, I also do what is called a word of the year. I think that it's important to have, whether it's a word or words of the year, that's kind of your guiding principle for the year to get you through your goals, your vision, that type of thing. And last year was very significant for me because I was working on some streamlining and simplifying. So that was my words of the year last year. I'm still kind of carrying those over because, believe it or not, even though organizers can still be streamlined and simplified, you can always find new things to do that. But this year, my word is inspire. And I'm trying to inspire myself to do new and different things while I'm inspiring my clients to do the same. So I've got up on my wall, I've got the word inspire, and whether it's on a Post-it note or you make a big flashy sign, whatever it may be. And then the last thing that I do is I do some mind mapping. And for those of you that aren't familiar, you can do however you want to do it, whether it's on a big poster board. I actually have a large book, and I call her my Molly book. And Molly stands for Mapping Opportunities for Lifelong Learning and Inspiration. So I always say I've got to go talk to Molly, and I put all that information in. So I'm setting my goals, I'm doing my mind mapping. So again, it's reflections, my word of the year, my vision boards, and then Molly are the things that I use to set my goals and to help me move forward with the year.
That's awesome. And it's interesting because you say reflections. It is reflective. A lot of times I call that debriefing. Like I am in a perpetual state of debriefing. If I have a client that hasn't heard me say, let's debrief that, then I must have been having a bad day or something. And then I do love vision boards. And I want to just comment on that, Beth, because in a world where we're all going digital and doing so many things digitally online, for me, there is a physiological, right? Because we're using our hands and it's very tactile, and the studies do show that when you type on your computer, if that's all you're doing, just one little part of your brain lights up. When you are doing something like cutting out pictures and taping and gluing and your brain is working, the whole top of your brain is lighting up. And the same holds true with your Molly, your book, your where you're doing your mind mapping. If you only did that on the computer, only one small area of your brain would light up. So by doing it in that book, you are tapping into all of the potential that your brain can bring to you. So I know that's not really the topic of our talk, but I think it's so important, not only for us as professional women, but anyone that has kids, be thinking about that, because they're trying to do away with cursive. And we need our kids to be learning cursive because it helps them, their brains develop and access more creative areas. So I love that. And just so you know, my word for the year is flourish. And I'm trying to evaluate, there's a book and I cannot remember. I think it's Debbie Macomber, the romance author, wrote a book on this very topic. And it was a really good book. I read it a number of years ago. So my word is flourish. And what I try to do is I ask myself, when something comes my way, and you know, Beth, we get lots of requests to do things. I say to myself, will this help me flourish or not? Yes or no? And I have said no to a few things, and with a little trepidation. And what's interesting is I said no to those things, and lo and behold, I got a couple of other things that have come my way that are more in keeping with things that will help me flourish. So if you're so inclined to think of a word, to have a word of the year, I highly encourage it. And obviously, Beth, yours is inspire, which I think is fabulous, because I think you and I both work hard to inspire people, and sometimes
Mhm.
we need a little inspiration ourselves. So
Absolutely. But I think one thing that you hit upon is when you take that word and when opportunities or potential opportunities, again, using that word as your guidepost to whether or not you're going to do something or not do something. So I think that's important that you made note of that. I think that word is meant to be your guiding word for the year.
yeah, so flourish. So
Good for
I will
you.
see how that propagates for me. And
Absolutely.
you'll have to
Absolutely.
keep me posted on Inspire. So
Inspire. Absolutely. Absolutely.
so Beth, you and I have had many conversations around my
Mhm.
own time management and organization. And
Mhm.
full disclosure, I have worked with Beth. Beth has come in and periodically helps me work on organization in my office. And so what's interesting is it's not that I can't do it. It's I'm very often doing it for my mom or for my clients, or
Mhm.
and I'm not in organizing, but I'm always keeping things organized in my projects for
Mhm.
clients. And then it comes time for my own organization, and sometimes I'm just plain exhausted and I don't want to do it. But when Beth comes, we get it done, we
You get
have
it done.
fun, and it's all good. So I've read an article that said that
Mhm.
82% of people don't use any time management system, which really, I have to be honest, is mind-boggling to me,
Mhm.
and maybe to
Mhm.
you, maybe not.
Mhm.
And I always tell people, keep in mind, I don't consider a simple to-do list a time management
That's
system.
correct.
I mean, it can help you get things done, but I don't consider that time management. So tell us a little bit about what productivity tools you use to keep yourself on track.
Absolutely. I have to admit, I'll be full disclosure as well. I have every now and then, I do have like a little strip, like a little skinny notebook where sometimes where you're just in the middle of something and you write it down real quick so that you don't forget to put it onto a very important tool, which is your task list. Now, again, this is just something that I have used since I worked in the corporate world. I'm a Microsoft uh, gal, so to speak. I use a Microsoft 365 and I use the task list. I cannot live without my task list. And when it prints out, it's about 30 pages long because I use it for both my personal and professional. Some people like to split it up, but my life is entwined with everything that's going on. So for me, it's important whether you're using Google. I also use Google Calendar. Now, again, some people ask, why are you using Google Calendar versus Outlook Calendar? I'm actually probably going to try to transition over, but I like the features initially when I got started with that. So if you're not using a calendar, and I actually ran upon someone who said that she doesn't use a calendar, she keeps it all in her mind. And I was like, whoa. And she says she's doing just fine with that. If that's your opportunity, by all means. But again, looking at those kinds of tools, a task list, I keep things in my inbox, in my email until I can get them on my task list. But then also for those of us that are in business, or also for yourself personally, I use a client relationship management tool as well. And it's interesting when people say, what do you use? And it is something called LACRM, and it stands for less annoying CRM, and it has the pipelines and the workflows inside of there. We are just transitioning to that here at the office because we were using another platform that honestly was way more than what we needed. It was very complicated, and we don't have a lot of sale. It was meant more of a sales tool. But again, finding those kinds of tools that work for you, whether you're using Dubsado or you're using 17 Hats or whether you're using LACRM, please use something, that type of thing as far as the workflow goes. So again, Microsoft Office, I use task lists, I use Google Calendar, and then also we use we use then LACRM, our tools to try to keep us up and running and keeping us moving forward and keeping us organized.
So Beth, when you mentioned that your client keeps everything in her head, I literally, it just like made me feel exhausted
I,
because
I,
that mind clutter, what I
mhm,
have found for me, so just let me tell you, I can keep a lot of stuff going in my head too.
mhm,
But what I have
mhm.
noticed when I have too many things going on and I'm trying to keep too many things in my head, my stress level goes up because I get almost anxious, like I'm going to forget something or I'm going to miss something.
Mhm,
So for me, I love to get everything into my online calendar or
mhm,
task list or someplace other than my brain.
Mhm.
And then I feel like I can relax a little bit more. Like I don't have
Mhm.
all this mind clutter
Mhm.
that's making me anxious. And
Mhm.
I'm like you, Beth. I mean, sometimes like even right now, like I have a little
Yeah.
to-do list, and some of this came out of a session with my virtual assistant, and you'll be happy to know we're doing online file cleanup, including emptying
Yay.
out our Dropbox,
Mhm. Mhm.
and then also transferring a lot of a variety of different photos over. I have a Forever account, and that's a
Mhm.
product that Beth uses, and I've been very lax at using it, but I'm really stepping up now, trying to make it a priority to get photos over there, and then not just get them over there. So I sometimes still do, because it's that motory thing. I still
Mhm.
sometimes take it, even if it's in my system, I write it down because I just feel like more organized or balanced or connected to then what I have to do
Mhm.
that day. And it works for me. So
Mhm.
again, I think what you're saying is have tools that work for you.
Exactly. And just I was gonna, and one thing I forgot to mention was that, you might have a little, like a little piece of paper, but I have a notebook where I take with me everywhere, because you never know when a thought is going to happen, or I'm like, oh my gosh, oh, I've got to do this, or a conversation sparks like a to-do for you. So I write it all down, and then I take it here, and then I transfer it to my task list. So again, something like a notebook, or even a little notepad, because you might be in the car. Ooh, don't write in the car, but you might get to your place and you have a thought, or you leave a client or a personal appointment and you're like, oh my gosh, that's right, they said I should be doing this. So like I said, do a notebook. And of course, my notebook, I personalized it, obviously my own pictures, something that works for you. But then that other tool, as Regina mentioned, Forever, is another tool that we use for storing, photos and documents, things related to our operations manual. That type of thing is another tool that we are using as well.
Yes. So, Beth, let's shift our focus a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you're a
Mm-hmm.
professional speaker and a
Mm-hmm.
trainer,
Mm-hmm.
and you assist and inspire many, many small businesses and lots of
Mm-hmm.
individuals, not
Mm-hmm.
just small businesses. So, one of your programs is Organizing Life A to Z. So, tell us a little bit about that program. I know that I've participated in your program in the past. So, tell our audience today what that program is about.
Sure. Basically, the program is, we know life is full and we need reminders of helping us to stay on track. And so that was the main reason why I put this program together, to be a reminder to be calm and serene and gentle with ourselves. And so with that, I was coming up with all these different things. And I thought, and I love acronyms, but I also like using, for instance, like the alphabet helps me put this program together. And so these are the things that I've learned personally and professionally to try to keep me calm, to keep me organized, and to keep me on track. And so we just go letter by letter and talk about those different types of things that help me both personally and professionally.
That's great. So I picked one of the letters.
Mhm.
How do you ensure that you maintain the M in Organizing Life A to Z? And tell our audience what M is and how you do that for yourself.
Absolutely. M is my favorite letter. It happens to be right in the middle, but M is my favorite letter, and it stands for making time for yourself. Because if you don't do that, someone else or many others will do it for you. So again, I actually was just on a call yesterday with a woman that I am mentoring, and she said, I do nothing for myself because it's either business or family. And so we were kind of talking a little bit about that. And I'm going to say right up front is, I am unapologetic about the things that I do to make time for myself. And some of those things include, I do regular facials, I do massages, I do pedicures, manicures. I instituted, that's kind of a harsh word, implemented maybe, is even time with my husband. And so we now have date night twice a week. We do trivia on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And again, that's making time for myself and time for my husband. So I find that just extremely critical that we all figure out where that making time for yourself, because guess what? Our calendars are so full, and we're so easy to take care of others, but we don't take care of ourselves.
completely agree. And every once in
Mhm.
a while, I have an at-home spa night. Um,
Yep.
and my husband knows if I tell him I'm having a spa night, that means do not interrupt me. I need this time by myself. And
Mhm.
he's just gotten used to it over the years. And so sometimes if I haven't been explicit, he might pop in and say, "Oh, is this a spa night?" And if I say yes, he leaves immediately. So he's very well trained. And it is
Mhm.
so important to have some
Mhm.
downtime because that's how we burn out, right? I mean, at the end of
Absolutely.
the day, what do they say in the airplane? You got to put your own mask on first.
Mhm.
Well, if you're not re-energizing and rejuvenating yourself, you can't be and do all the things that you need and want to do. So
Mhm.
I love
Mhm.
that. You're an
Mhm.
inspiration to all of us.
Oh, thank you. Let's, it's easy sometimes to say I'm going to give that up, but a lot of times if you schedule it in your calendar, you have to schedule yourself. And it's just like an appointment that you're scheduling for clients or other family members. You have to be your own client and get yourself scheduled on the calendar.
Exactly. And that's a great segue to my next question.
Mm.
And, most busy professionals do use some kind of time management and organization
Mhm.
tools. And I think it's a must, to have an organized calendar and task list. So tell us a little bit how you set your calendar and task list for the
Mhm.
year. Because,
Mhm.
and let's just be honest, we're in February, but that doesn't mean that people can't do a reset if
Uh,
they want to do this for the remainder of the year.
That is correct. And it's important for me that again, so basically, as I indicated before, I usually start about November, December, but you could use this as your starting point because you don't have to be on calendar year. You could be on a fiscal year calendar. But what I do is kind of like setting the appointment. So all the things that are, say for instance, that are recurring, all of those. And so if you're not using a calendar, and that was something that I learned many, many years ago when I was in an inner circle group, is I was still using my day timer and they were all like, what are you doing? Here I was, this professional organizer using a daytime, day timers, and finally got myself so that all those recurring appointments could stay on the calendar and, you shift them as you need to. But what I do is annually is I take a look at the whole year and I go, okay, where are we traveling? Where do I need to put things in for my mom? Where do I need to put my time in, the M, and getting those all scheduled out? So I plan everything for the whole year, even all of my workshops, my events that I have, pretty much those all go on the calendar. And for those of you that are thinking, okay, I can't schedule like a manicure or a pedicure or anything like that, how I countered that, because initially when I first started out, I was canceling those because it was like those were easy. So I have my specialist who does those. I book them for the whole year. So this for 2023, all of my appointments are scheduled for all of my personal pampering, because then they are set. Again, can things be changed because life happens? Absolutely. So again, planning that whole year. And then what I do is then on a monthly basis at the kind of like the last Sunday of the month, I take a look at the upcoming month. Do things need to be changed and do we need to kind of make some changes? And then every week on Sunday, I also take a look at the week and say, do I need to make changes now because has things happened or whatever? So I do it annually, I do it monthly, and I do it weekly as well, and getting those items on the calendar. But more importantly, I can't, not only the calendar blocking, but I'm a color coded person. I like to see where my time is being spent. So personal items are one color, clients specifically are red. Now, you might have a different color system, but for me, those are hot. That means that's going to be something that's bringing in the revenue. I want to see those hot items, the red. I want to see those glaring on my calendar. And again, I encourage you, that way you can identify where your weeks or even your months are going if you color code, so then you can see that different system in place. So again, annually, monthly, and weekly is how I look at my calendar.
It's funny, Beth. I'm a color code gal too.
Mhm.
I use colors a little differently. Red means it can't be changed.
Okay.
So I will have a client meeting in red,
Mhm.
or if I have an outside meeting and I need travel time, I will book
Mhm.
travel time,
Mhm.
and that will be in red. That means that's something I can't change. And so if
Mhm.
something comes up, I will give it a hard look because it is in red. So
Exactly.
love it. So earlier I started talking a little bit about some of the digital clutter, and
Mhm.
that could be emails, and I mentioned photos and obviously documents, and those are just the tip of the iceberg. So What advice do you have for all of us when it comes with this digital chaos in our lives? I mean, I don't know anyone except for maybe my mom, who's really not online, who
Right.
isn't suffering with some kind of digital chaos.
I agree. And and especially with photos, we went from the physical photos, and now that we have our, easily can take our phones and we can take pictures, those get either end up on our phone or end up on our computer, and we don't have a system in place for that. A couple of things come to mind with regard to the digital chaos. First of all, a lot of it is in your email. And while we would love to have everybody's newsletters and we want to support all of our friends for their businesses, honestly, we have to really evaluate what is coming into our inbox and getting off of a lot of newsletters. And it's interesting that a lot of times you sign up for something and gosh, golly, they send you an email every single day. Honestly, don't be afraid to get off of a lot of those things because they just clutter up your email box as well. And again, I have a system, I leave my items in my inbox until I can either get them filed where they need to be filed in, because I have a system on my computer, especially in email, they all get filed into a folder, or I can get it onto my task list. So my goal is not to have those items in my inbox. But again, being conscious about how often you are checking. If you're checking your inbox 17 times a day, you have to kind of come up with that system as well. But the one thing that I'd like to recommend for digital chaos is something called your daily digital delete. And it can be 15 minutes a day. And you're like, what can you get done in 15 minutes? Believe it or not, 15 minutes, set the timer on your phone for 15 minutes and just start going through email or going folder by folder and getting rid of those things that you don't need, especially your desktop. Now, some people clearly use their desktop as a means of as the depository for everything before they figure it out. And I have one file, or I have one icon on my desktop, and that's my recycle bin. I have nothing. I do not use the desktop. If I do, it's a quick, because that's where I want to drop it, and then I move it. And I have just a quick story about that. I was doing an event, and the speaker, I always brought my own computer because sometimes, for whatever reason, things don't work. And the gentleman's computer didn't work. And I always recommend that you have your presentation on a hard drive so that we could use my computer. And so I set him up, and all of a sudden I heard him explain, oh my goodness. And I thought something had happened to my computer. And I go running over. I go, what's wrong? He goes, you have nothing on your desktop. And it was like, what? He goes, this is the first computer that I have ever seen, because he was a tech guy. He was all this stuff, and he had a problem with his own computer. But he's like, you have nothing on your desktop. Why is that? I said, when I open up my computer, I want to start my day fresh. I want to see none of that digital clutter. Now, I'm not saying that there might not be some digital clutter in some folders that I need to take care of, but think about, as you're opening up your computer, how you want to start your day. If that's all you see is all of that. So maybe that might be your first step, is to clear up your desktop or get things moved into folders. 15 minutes, daily digital delete. And you're like, I don't have time for that either. Yes, you do. Take your phone and set an alarm for, mine's 9:15 at night. And I'm like, okay, why? I'm tired at night. No, actually, because that's kind of something, okay, I could easily just quickly delete something off of the computer, whatever. So if I can recommend one thing, is daily digital delete, 15 minutes to help start clearing that digital chaos that you have.
So D cubed, I'm down with that.
Absolutely.
So Beth, we're winding down on time. And before you go, I have one last item for you. And I'd like you to share with us one piece of advice that you think would be helpful to our listeners today when it comes, or our viewers today, when it comes to organizing.
Sure, absolutely. And actually, this is a quote. I'm going to leave you with a quote by another professional organizer, and her name is Christina Scalisi. And it resonates with me, and I use this in a lot of my presentations. Organization is not about perfection. It is about efficiency, reducing stress and clutter, saving time and money, and improving your overall quality of life. So again, it's not about, you have to have, I like to say that done is better than perfect. And sometimes I'm just as guilty as anyone else looking for that perfection. But again, organization is not about perfection. It's about efficiency, reducing stress and clutter, saving time and money, and improving your overall quality of life.
And who wouldn't like to do that? And I'm with you. I always say
Absolutely.
progress, not perfection.
That is
And I
correct.
do celebrate and reward myself when I'm doing
Absolutely.
some of the stuff I don't want to do. So that concludes our interview with Beth Gibson Lilja.
Oh, wow.
And you can learn more about Beth at www.gettingorganizednow.com. So thank you so much for being here today with us, Beth. We so appreciate it. And for those of you, don't forget to visit reginabarr.com, where you can learn more about upcoming podcasts and other events under the events page. So with that, I want to thank you for joining me today and have a wonderful day.